why the students have an affirmative action bake sale, part of the reason is that in most classes you cannot have a genuine dialogue because students are afraid, and so they find other modes of expression.
I was in this class, it was a group of 200. The professor started talking about something that sounded very familiar, and I realized he was talking about my letter.
Well, this professor's holding up her article and saying this person is an idiot.
This writer has other motivations and is a racist and stupid and all the other things, without actually refuting any of the argument that she put forth.
So I'm slumping down in my seat.
It wasn't right in any way for me to have to pay for his political podium.
The letter had nothing to do with the class material. Zip.
He went up there and he went on a rant.
This is not why we hire professors.
I don't think they should be treated differently. I think they should be treated equally. That's pretty unprejudiced.
Well, you see, Lydia, views like yours can cause problems for school administrators. After students at Columbia held an affirmative action bake sale, some students took offense and marched on the administration with a list of demands.
The so-called bake sale that happened, with its intent to drive minority students off of campus, already marginalized in racist capitalist America.
My sexist, my racist, and my homophobic country.
Yes, I am angry today! And I'm hostile! But come and talk to me about it and deal with this anger that you made in me! Stop it. Stop it. Just stop it.
The anti-affirmative action bake sale was 3 weeks ago.
I need my university to be a vehicle for change and understanding.
We were out here protesting for 2 days before he made a statement. And this statement was incredibly weak.
We are going to be giving them a list of demands and suggestions as to what we think that office can be doing.
We want structural change. That's what we want. We want things to really change on campus.
What do they want to change? Other people's right to free speech? Other people's right to disagree?
If they want to render you helpless and make people not take you seriously, they label you. Oh, prejudiced. Oh, homophobic. Oh, there's a bigot. No one listens to that person.
When it comes to these sacred cows, racial politics, and a few other things, there is no discussion. There's a way to think. That's what universities have become. This is the way you think.
Central Connecticut State University set up a panel to discuss slavery reparations, a proposal for paying today's black Americans for the sins of slavery over 150 years ago. All 7 speakers invited by the school supported the idea. Professor Jay Bergman questioned the lack of intellectual diversity on the panel. Bad idea, Jay.
2 individuals from the African Studies Department composed a statement. By opposing reparations, I was acting in a way that was akin to Hitler, the Nazis, and the Ku Klux Klan. Calling someone who disagrees with you a racist, a Nazi, and a Klansman simply for calling for intellectual diversity is engaging in a kind of intellectual and academic thuggery. Words like that are not designed to further a conversation or to enhance a debate. They are designed to end the debate, to delegitimize the speaker.
When discussing race on campus, the smartest thing to do is just keep your mouth shut, unless you know the right things to say.
My concern is doing away with whiteness. Whiteness is a form of racial oppression, sure. The suggestion is that it is somehow possible to separate whiteness from oppression, and it is not. There can be no white race without the phenomenon of white supremacy. If you abolish slavery, you abolish slaveholders. In the same way, if you abolish racial oppression, you do away with whiteness. Treason to whiteness is loyalty to humanity.
Your views are fairly well received in academia.
Yes, they're legitimate, not to say that everyone agrees, but sure. I could not point to any examples where it has provoked political censorship.
Really? Okay, well then here's a quick recap. On a college campus, these people are considered dangerous radicals, but this guy's completely legit.
Unfortunately, the way we talk about race does have a way of putting dividers between us.
To me, whiteness is an identity that arises entirely out of oppression.
To be black is to be aggrieved. These are people who nurture a sense of white people as the enemy.
Whiteness is not a culture, it's not a religion, it's not a language, it's simply an oppressive social category.
The essence of black authenticity is to be aggrieved. That's the idea that we're stuck with.
Blackness is an identity that can be plausibly argued to arise out of a resistance to oppression.
Once you assert that you're not particularly aggrieved, then people start wondering whether you're black at all.
Black studies is the study of a people that has formed itself in resistance to its oppression.
Most African American studies departments elegantly teach you how to be a victim. They teach you how you're a victim in ways that you didn't think about.
And the task is to bring this minority together in such a way that it makes it impossible for the legacy of whiteness to continue to reproduce itself.
You nurture the feeling among the black students that it is a racist campus. You pay people basically to tell them that in the classroom and in administrative offices. Obviously something's wrong, but you get to satisfy your sense of being a noble person by pretending that the black students are victims. That's something that now is not only a personality trait, but it's institutionalized on the university campus.
A lot of our students, I think, are unconsciously racist. It's not conscious, so they don't really see it in themselves. And of course, that's something that nobody wants to admit, that they're unconsciously a racist.
So to protect students from all these unconscious racist zombies roaming around campus, many schools have turned to an old idea, segregation. William and Mary sponsored a racially segregated orientation program. So did Tufts and Brown. At many schools, students can live all their years in racially and ethnically segregated housing. Even graduation day itself is segregated on a number of campuses. From the time students first set foot on campus to the minute they leave, schools are preaching racial separatism, and all in the name of diversity.
For all the lip service that's paid to, inclusion and, racial harmony, the exact opposite is what you see on a college campus. I've never been to a more segregated environment than I have here.
I could see a segregationist coming on our campus and completely loving what they're seeing. All the non-white students are stuffed over in the multicultural center. The women are all in the women's center, and the gays are in the gay center.
Well, we're headed towards greater polarization, and I believe that a lot of that has to do with the fact that we've taken identity politics too far.
People are so exquisitely sensitive and so exquisitely vigilant that they end up condescending to black people when actually the idea was to treat black people as equals. Things have changed now, and if we're talking about those things happening because of history, then we're getting further and further from that history.
I have a dream.
Martin Luther King's dream was to open doors for people, not to have the door closed on certain people in favor of other people. And yet, in the name of diversity, universities are judging people based on their color. They do this invoking the name of Martin Luther King, but is that what he really wanted? Was that part of the dream he had?
The controversy surrounding race on campus extends far beyond affirmative action. Just ask Steve Hinkle. Steve found himself in trouble for posting flyers announcing an upcoming event. The local college Republicans were hosting a speech by conservative author Mason Weaver.
We brought Mason Weaver just because we wanted somebody that was going to be dynamic. We didn't want, somebody stiff up there to give a boring lecture about tax policy or something. Just the title of his book was provocative enough. It's okay to leave the plantation. It's about economic freedom, the new Underground Railroad. And the new Underground Railroad being capitalism, free markets. It had a catchy title, it was provocative, and that's what we need to get people at our events. We advertise on campus with flyers. Took the title of his book and put it in quotes with the picture under it. Said, "Come here, Mason Weaver." We plastered the flyers all over campus, like we do for every speaker.
By hanging a flyer in the Multicultural Center, Steve began an 18-month odyssey that wound up in federal court.
One of the students in there recognized the flyer. She confronted Steve and basically told him to take his flyer and go, and if he refused to do so, she would call the police.
That flyer is offensive, and we have a right to not be offended.
She mentioned the flyer as being an example of hate speech.
Do you think that people have a right not to be offended?
Nobody has a right to not be offended. I'm offended every day in class when your professors bash my views.
What was her objection?
The use of the word plantation.
I tried to explain to him that this was the title of his book. This is a speaking event. You guys can come. There's a question and answer period.
He wanted to talk to them, and they said, well, if you don't understand why this flyer is offensive to us, we don't have anything to talk about.
They told me to leave. The student said, I'm going to leave or call the police.
There are constructive ways of dealing with that anger, not calling the police on Steve for hanging a flyer.
The police report stated that a young white male was posting racial material. That's what they said, offensive racial material.
He was very upset, and he asked me what he should do.
I called my parents. I said, listen, I think I'm in some kind of trouble here. I don't know what's going on, but I want you guys to be here. It was myself, both of my parents, the Director of Judicial Affairs, Ardith Tregenza, and the Vice President of Student Affairs.